Thank you, David, for those extremely kind and warm words. And then I greatly appreciate and treasure your support and your friendship. As a matter of fact, I would say that the most rewarding part of our being in the Rivertowns is the relationship and the friendship that we have with you and others like you. Hinda and I often talk of all places. Hinda and I often talk. Good way to start a sentence. Hinda and I often talk about how of all places that we could have started a Chabad house, we feel so blessed that we ended up here in the Rivertowns. We have met some of the most amazing, decent, kind, sincere, and warm people. It is truly a special community. Tonight's event is a perfect illustration. While it's not my role tonight to give the thank yous, it'll be later on, but I do have to say that Hinda and I were both extremely touched by the tremendous efforts put in by so many to make this happen, and by all of you coming out to celebrate the 10th year anniversary of Chabad. We are both truly humbled that this community has chosen to honor us on this special occasion. However, I have to say, but while certainly flattered and gratified, I wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't admit to being somewhat embarrassed and feeling somewhat inadequate standing up here. Being shluchim, emissaries of the Rebbe, serving this community is not a burden or an act of heroism. It is one of the greatest privileges possible. And whatever successes we have seen over the past decade have been but the products of God's grace, the Rebbe's blessings, and the generosity of the people of this community who have supported our efforts every step of the way. You know the story of the priest, the minister, and the rabbi? Everyone knows that story, right? Of course it is. Number 5,412, I think. So here it goes. A priest, a minister, and a rabbi are having their weekly high-stakes poker gambling game. And the police launch a raid. So turning to the priest, the lead officer on the scene says, "Father Murphy, where are you gambling?" The priest turned his eyes toward heaven and whispered quietly, "Lord, please forgive me for what I'm about to do." And he then turns back to the officer and boldly states, "No, officer, I was not gambling." The officer then asked the minister, "Pastor Johnson, were you gambling?" He too quietly appeals for divine understanding in advance, and then defiantly declares, "No, officer, I was not gambling." Turning to the rabbi, the officer asks, "Rabbi Goldstein, were you gambling?" To which the rabbi simply shrugged his shoulders, looked around, "With whom would I be gambling?" There are some things that you can do alone. And then there are things that simply cannot be accomplished unless it's a team effort. From our humble beginnings 10 years ago, with less than 10 participants joining us in Joel Ross's house for an informational meeting, to the acquisition of a home, of a facility that we could call our own, and all the milestones in between and since, none of this could have happened without the encouragement, support, involvement of those who believed in us, those who shared in our hopes, visions, and dreams for our community. And as such, the lion's share of the credit for the decade of achievements that we celebrate tonight belongs largely to you, not merely our supporters, but indeed our partners in all of these endeavors. And so, in accepting this honor, we do so on behalf of all the men, women, and children who make up the colorful kaleidoscope of this beautiful mosaic of love and learning that we call Chabad of the Rivertowns. The story is told about the third Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel. A young child of 8 years old, he's playing outside with his friends, and they notice a ladder leaning up against the house. Kids will be kids. They decide to play a game. Who can climb the highest on the ladder? The first boy steps on the ladder. He climbs a few rungs and was overcome with fear and scampers right back down. The second boy made it a little bit higher, but also after a few steps, he too got scared. And so it was with one boy after the other. Each one could only climb so high before hurrying back down. Then came little Menachem Mendel's turn. He stepped onto the ladder and without the slightest hesitation proceeded straight to the very top. Game over. His Zaidi, Reb Shneir Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, was watching. And he approached this little Mendel. How did he do that? How is it that your friends were scared and you were able to climb all the way to the top, seemingly without any fear whatsoever? Mendel responded, Zaidi, Grandpa, when my friends were climbing that ladder, they kept looking down to see how high they were, how far they had come. They would become so overwhelmed by their great heights that they could not climb any higher. I, on the other hand, kept looking up to see how far I have yet to go. And instead of getting scared, I stayed busy climbing, step after step. When you're focused on what's ahead of you, you don't become too impressed or overwhelmed by what's behind you. I believe that this story captures the essence of the Chabad approach to education and outreach on the international scale, as well as on the local level right here in our community. Yes, tonight we are celebrating an auspicious milestone, the 10th anniversary of Chabad in the Rivertowns. 10 years of enabling children of all ages to proudly connect with their Jewish roots and identity in a warm, loving, joyful, relevant, and fun-filled manner through the Hebrew school, bar mitzvah clubs, holiday programs. 10 years of strengthening and broadening Jewish awareness through Jewish Learning Institute classes, a vibrant women's group, the Jewish Women's Circle. 10 years of building a vibrant Jewish community through an active synagogue, social services, and large-scale community events, such as the public menorah lightings, Purim festivals, or Passover Seders. 10 years of reaching out, teaching, sharing, inspiring, and helping the people of this community with whatever their spiritual or physical needs may be. These 10 years, however, mark only the beginning of our ascent. For as long as there are children out there in need of a Jewish education, as long as there are people hungering for bread, for companionship, for knowledge, as long as there are individuals looking for hope, for meaning, and for answers, as long as there is a community in need to join together in the worship of God and celebration of life, we must remain focused on how far we have yet to go. And let me say this. Considering the rungs of the ladder we've been able to climb in the span of a decade, from those humble beginnings with 8 people gathered in Joe Ross's living room, to where we are tonight, with close to 300 guests gathered in support and celebration of this cause. Just think of the heights we'll be capable of reaching in the years to come. I therefore suggest that tonight is more than a celebration of the past. This evening represents a collective rededication to our hopes and dreams for the future. Let the skies be our limit. This is certainly the message that Hinda and I will be taking away from this evening, as we are resolved to redouble our efforts to make Chabad of the Rivertowns an ever brighter beacon of light for people of all ages and from all walks of life throughout this region. And it is our hope that you will continue to stand by with us in these next 10 years, as you have so benevolently done in the first. Once again, from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank all of those that put so much into making this evening happen and the past 10 years. Please give your attention to my partner and co-honoree, who is not only the real force of energy and wisdom behind the Silverman family, but also behind the vibrancy and creativity of Chabad of the Rivertowns, my dear wife, Hinda.